We live in one of the safest periods in human history, and yet millions of people move through life with permanently activated nervous systems. No predator is chasing them. No war is outside the door. No famine is approaching the village. And still, their hearts race on Sunday evenings. Their shoulders remain tense at dinner. Their minds rehearse unfinished tasks at 2 in the morning. Their bodies sit still while their nervous systems behave as though something terrible is about to happen. We call this being busy. Sometimes we call it ambition, but increasingly, psychology has another word for it: burnout. In 2019, the World Health Organization officially recognized burnout as an occupational phenomenon, describing it through 3 dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, and a reduced sense of effectiveness. In simpler language, you become tired, detached, and unable to feel meaning in what you once managed to survive. But burnout is not simply working too much. Human beings have always worked hard. A farmer in the 14th century worked harder physically than most office workers ever will. A blacksmith did not have a wellness app and a lavender candle waiting at home. The problem is not effort alone. The problem is the kind of effort modern life demands from the mind. Because many people today are not merely tired, they are psychologically overexposed. The human nervous system evolved for temporary stress. A threat appears, the body reacts. The threat disappears, the body recovers. This rhythm matters. But modern work rarely allows recovery. Emails follow people home. Phones vibrate beside the bed. Notifications interrupt meals, conversations, even silence itself. Many people wake up and encounter the world first through obligation. Before sunlight, before thought, before their own inner voice. And the nervous system never fully exits vigilance. This is why burnout often feels confusing. People say, "But my job isn't physically difficult." Of course not. That is precisely the problem. The body remains motionless while the mind experiences constant low-grade emergency. Attention splinters. Urgency becomes permanent. The brain never receives the ancient signal that says, "The danger has passed. You may rest now." Instead, there is always another message, another task, another update, another small invisible demand. And because these demands are individually minor, people often underestimate what they accumulate into psychologically. But the nervous system does not measure stress only through catastrophe. It measures interruption, uncertainty, lack of control, and prolonged hypervigilance. For most of history, work had visible completion. Bread was baked, wood was carved, shoes were repaired, fields were planted. The work ended in something tangible. Even exhaustion had shape. Modern work often has no satisfying conclusion. You clear an inbox that refills instantly. You finish one project only to inherit 3 more. You attend meetings about future meetings. You spend entire days moving information from one glowing rectangle to another. And this creates a strange psychological condition: mental expenditure without emotional completion. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han describes modern society as an achievement society, where people no longer feel externally oppressed, but internally pressured to constantly optimize themselves. That pressure becomes deeply personal. People no longer feel they are simply failing at work. They feel they are failing at being a person. And because identity becomes attached to productivity, rest begins to feel morally suspicious. If you are not producing, improving, answering, progressing, optimizing, what exactly are you doing? Living, perhaps. Though modern culture finds that answer increasingly unconvincing. Burnout changes the brain. Research has linked chronic occupational stress to problems with memory, emotional regulation, attention, and executive functioning. This is why burned-out people often experience brain fog, forgetfulness, irritability, emotional numbness, and difficulty concentrating. Not because they became unintelligent overnight, but because prolonged stress alters cognitive functioning. Cortisol, useful in short bursts, becomes damaging when elevated continuously. Sleep quality declines. Inflammation rises. The body remains prepared for action without receiving resolution. And eventually, the mind begins protecting itself through emotional distancing. This is one reason burnout often transforms into cynicism. It is not that people suddenly become cruel, but caring continuously becomes neurologically expensive. So the brain reduces emotional investment. You stop feeling engaged. Then you stop feeling present. Then quietly, you stop feeling much at all. The Stoics are often misunderstood online. People reduce them to productivity slogans for emotionally constipated businessmen standing beside mountains. But the Stoics were deeply concerned with the relationship between external demands and inner freedom. Epictetus wrote, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." Modern burnout often feels like the opposite of that. Your attention belongs to notifications. Your mood belongs to deadlines. Your sense of worth belongs to performance metrics. Even your rest belongs to productivity culture. Optimized sleep, optimized meditation, optimized weekends, optimized exhaustion. The Stoics understood that endless striving can become a form of captivity. Because a person can become consumed by externals they can never fully control. Seneca warned repeatedly against restless busyness, not work itself. Restlessness, the endless agitation of a mind unable to arrive where it already is. And perhaps that describes modern burnout perfectly. Not merely hard work, but uninterrupted psychological agitation. Many burned-out people take time off and become frightened because they still feel exhausted. The vacation ends. The tiredness remains. This happens because burnout is not solved only through absence of work. It requires nervous system recovery. And recovery is not the same thing as distraction. Scrolling is not recovery. Binge consumption is not recovery. Lying in bed while mentally rehearsing tomorrow is not recovery. The nervous system recovers through signals of safety. Slow walks, focused attention, silence, sleep, real boundaries, conversations without interruption, moments where the body is no longer preparing for impact. But many people have forgotten how to experience those moments without immediately reaching for stimulation. Stillness itself begins to feel uncomfortable, and that is because the body has adapted to constant activation. Recovery does not begin with becoming perfectly balanced overnight. It begins with interruption. Interrupting the rhythm that convinced your nervous system that life is only obligation. A real lunch break. One evening without email. A walk without headphones. Reading slowly, leaving the phone in another room. Allowing boredom to exist without immediately anesthetizing it. Protecting small pockets of psychological silence. And perhaps most importantly, learning again that your worth is not identical to your usefulness. Because burnout thrives in people who believe they must constantly earn the right to exist peacefully. But human beings are not machines with emotional software updates. The nervous system cannot be bullied forever without consequence. Eventually, the body begins speaking the truth the mind ignored. Through exhaustion, through numbness, through collapse. Burnout is not simply about working too hard, but about living too long without psychological shelter, too long without recovery, too long without boundaries. Perhaps this is why so many people feel exhausted despite modern comfort, because convenience is not the same thing as peace. The world became faster, but the human nervous system remained ancient. And now, millions of people are trying to survive digital age pressure with bodies designed for slower rhythms and smaller worlds. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to Atlas of Becoming and click on the screen for the next video, The Psychology of Doom Scrolling. Because burnout rarely ends when work ends if the nervous system spends the evening trapped in another endless stream of urgency, outrage, and fear.